For the next few minutes, I'd like to introduce you to some of my favorite resources that are especially useful when it comes to illuminating questions of a historical sort. So, as you walk through a text you're studying and you identify features of either names of people or places, topography, elements of culture, elements of historic events, political, all that sort of thing, when you identify them and you think to yourself, I wonder whether I understand these observations as people in the original era would have understood them. Here are some excellent resources that can help you answer those questions. What I'm showing you right now, these black dictionaries, as they're known, the IVP, InterVarsity Press Dictionaries, these are several in a set, a series, which do an excellent job of shedding light on particular issues. Notice the difference between them. Upper left, OT Dictionary for Pentateuch. So this means topics that relate to the first 5 books of the Bible will be addressed here. When we come to the second one in the upper row, historical books. So your Kings and Chronicles and books of that nature will be dealt with here. And then lower left, the prophets, your Isaiah, your Jeremiah, your Joel, Obadiah. On the right, Paul and his letters of the New Testament, and there are others on Jesus and the Gospels and so forth. What you will find in here is a topical treatment of key ideas. So let's suppose you're studying Sinai and you want to appreciate what went on there. You might want to look up the idea of covenant, or you might want to look up the name Moses, and it will give you a fairly in-depth picture of Moses' life. Or you might want to look up the Red Sea crossing or the Exodus events. These will also deal with some questions of theology, but especially questions of a historical sort. These will shed a lot of light on them. Here's a pair of resources that are very, very accessible. I particularly use the one on the left since I concentrate in Old Testament studies. This is again by InterVarsity Press. It's called the Bible Background Commentary. Here's the difference with the preceding set. The preceding set were topically arranged, alphabetical topics. This one is rather in book and chapter order. So, for example, if you're studying Genesis 22, the near sacrifice of Isaac, and you're wondering, say, I wonder if there's anything in the surrounding cultures that would shed light on what God asked Abraham to do. What about child sacrifice? And that you could go to the Genesis 22 section in Bible book and chapter order in the resource on the left, and it just may be that Walton, Matthews, and Chavalis would have commented on that. I put that in tentative words because they won't comment on everything. So it's a little bit hit and miss, but these are trained scholars. They are going to contribute insights of a historical sort for many passages that will be of interest to you. They will talk about religions. Let's suppose, for example, you're studying the showdown between Elijah and the prophets of Baal. Well, if you drop into the section of Scripture where that's treated, where that's presented, and that is to say that sequence within the Bible background commentary, it's very likely that these scholars will stop and tell you what Baal worship was like. So you would appreciate some of the things going on in that passage. These commentaries will not, or these resources will not offer you application. They won't tell you much about literary devices, but they are just an absolute treasure trove, very rapidly accessible, and these are quite concise. And recently they've come out with a New Testament Bible background commentary. You see that on the right. Same idea, also coming from InterVarsity. So I commend these to you. These are useful to add to your library, and they can contribute to your understanding of Scripture and illuminating it as you're explaining it to others. Here are the last two, and again, this is by no means an exhaustive list. These are simply some resources that I personally value quite highly. The one on the left is absolutely fascinating, at least to my way of thinking, particularly focusing on the Old Testament era. And so that's what they mean by biblical Israel. King and Steger are qualified archaeologists in their own right. So these are senior scholars, and they take a fascinating approach to the utilization of archaeology. Usually the way archaeology works is site by site. So you might zero in on Jericho, or you might zero in on Gezer or Dan, or someplace like that, and you would just study one site in depth over the centuries. This book is different. It's more of a topical. So they will say, well, let's see what technology was like. What was warfare like? How were cities and families organized? What was economics like? What was farming like? Transportation. How did merchants operate? What were birth and marriage and death ceremonies or customs like? So it's just a fascinating read. And by the way, it's got a lot of great color photos of artifacts or archaeological scenes as well, sites as well. So a real treasure trove, topic by topic, for especially the Old Testament era. On the right, then, you see one of several Bible atlases that you could choose among. I especially like this one. It's fairly current. Carl Rasmussen has done a great job, and what you'll find within it is not just one map of the ancient Near East, but season by season or era by era. What was the lay of the land when the Sumerians or the Babylonians were operating? What was the lay of the land when Assyria was powerful? Or how about the various stages of Egypt? Or when the Romans moved in? Or how about the Greeks? Together with these various time-sensitive maps, then they will have some brief and well-illustrated articles. This is not a thick book. It's a relatively thin, concise paperback. At least there is a concise version of it. Perhaps the picture I have here is more the expanded version. In any case, it's a great resource, and Atlas can add a lot to helping you visualize literally the lay of the land with some brief informative articles about the nations that are major players at various eras, various episodes of biblical history. So once again, the whole idea is to make your work of uncovering information regarding historical observations, make that work easy. They've done the work for you. Get in touch with resources like this and take full advantage of them. It will, for one thing, frankly, it'll make your teaching and preaching that much more interesting to listen to, because you won't be drawing just on your own suppositions or things that you've grown up with a native awareness of. Here you'll be going to some resources from the experts, but resources that are quite accessible. I should add one more thing. When it comes to more advanced research, those first resources, well, this one on the left will be good too, by King and Steger. What I'm fishing for is additional bibliographic data that can take you into further research. So King and Steger will have some good bibliographic data. Wouldn't go so quickly to these. There may be some, but these are an absolute goldmine of bibliographic data. Fairly current volumes and journals and other dictionary articles will be referenced within the isolated articles here, and that can be a launchpad for you if you're inclined to study more about covenants, or more about the event of the Exodus, or more about cultural conditions in the church at Corinth, or something like that. They will have a lot of good bibliographies associated with each individual article. I hope that helps you know where to go to accelerate your access of historical information that will illuminate your understanding of Scripture.